First contact with despair. The message that would change humanity's destiny arrived on a quiet Tuesday morning at the Deep Space Listening Array in New Mexico. Dr. Sarah Chen was about to end her shift when the quantum receivers detected something unprecedented. A transmission unlike anything they'd ever seen before. The signal wasn't the usual background noise of the cosmos. It was a cry for help, encoded in mathematics so advanced it took the world's most powerful quantum computers 3 days to decrypt it. When they finally broke through, the message was clear. To any civilization who receives this, we are the Novari, and we are dying. The transmission contained coordinates and a desperate plea. The Novari, a species that had mastered the art of bioengineering and neural networks, were being systematically annihilated by what they called the Shatter Swarm, a crystalline hive mind that consumed entire worlds, breaking down matter at the molecular level to create more of itself. Ambassador Michael Okonjo stood before the United Earth Council 2 weeks later, his dark eyes reflecting the holographic display of the Novari's last stronghold. They're fighting an enemy that adapts to everything they throw at it, he explained. The Shatter Swarm analyzes patterns, predicts responses, and evolves countermeasures within hours. The Novari's highly advanced technology has become their weakness. The more sophisticated their weapons, the faster the Shatter Swarm learns to counter them. The images showed a civilization in retreat. The Novari, beings of bioluminescent tissue and neural pathways, so complex they could interface directly with their technology, had lost 90% of their territory. Their remaining population of 8 million was housed in massive underground arcologies on their homeworld, protected by failing shields as the crystalline armies of the Shatter Swarm consumed the surface above. And they're asking us for help. General Helena Santos questioned, her skepticism evident. We're centuries behind them technologically. What could we possibly offer? Dr. Chen, who had been invited to present her analysis, stepped forward. That's exactly why they're asking us. The Novari's technology is built on predictable patterns and logical progressions. But humans, she smiled, we're anything but predictable. The council chambers erupted in debate. Earth had only achieved faster than light travel 30 years ago. Their ships were crewed by Novari standards, using a combination of antimatter drives and gravitational slingshots. Their weapons were primarily kinetic and nuclear, with some early directed energy systems. To many, the idea of helping a civilization so far advanced seemed absurd, but others saw an opportunity. Humanity had always excelled at finding unconventional solutions to impossible problems. They had survived their own near-extinction events through sheer determination and creativity. Perhaps that was exactly what the Novari needed. The vote was close, but in the end, humanity decided to answer the call. Within a month, Earth had assembled a response fleet, a mixture of military vessels, research ships, and converted mining craft. They called it Operation Wildcard, a name that would later prove prophetic. As the fleet prepared to depart, Dr. Chen stood in the observation deck of the flagship UES Imagination, watching the ships gather. They weren't the sleek, organic vessels of the Novari. They were ugly, practical things, built to take punishment and jury-rigged with experimental systems that would make any proper engineer cringe. Do you really think we can help them? A young ensign asked her. Chen thought about the countless hours she'd spent studying the Novari transmissions, about humanity's long history of achieving the impossible simply because they didn't know it was impossible. The Shatter Swarm expects logical, predictable responses, she said. They're about to learn that humans are anything but logical. Sometimes the best way to win isn't to play the game better. It's to flip the table and start a new game entirely. As the fleet engaged their drives and disappeared into the quantum fold, none of them knew they were about to demonstrate why humanity's greatest strength had always been their ability to do the unexpected. The Novari were about to learn why, throughout human history, the most dangerous words an engineer could utter were, "That's not how you're supposed to do it." The human element. The arrival of the human fleet in Novari space was met with equal parts hope, and skepticism. The Novari High Council, led by Premier Ixal, watched from their underground command center as the Earth ships emerged from quantum space, a motley collection of vessels that looked more like industrial equipment than warships. Premier Ixal's neural filaments flickered with concern as she observed the human ships through their long-range sensors. "These are your warriors?" she asked Ambassador Okanjo, her translator converting her thoughts into speech. "They appear primitive. Appearances can be deceiving," Okanjo replied with a slight smile. "We brought more than just ships. We brought new ways of thinking." The humans' first demonstration of this came during what would later be known as the Battle of the Outer Rings. A Shatterswarm harvester fleet approached the Novari homeworld's defensive perimeter, its crystalline ships adapting in real time to the Novari's energy weapons. The Novari expected the humans to retreat. Instead, they watched in amazement as the Earth ships charged forward. "What are they doing?" Ixal demanded. "Their shields can't withstand." She never finished the sentence. The lead human vessel, a converted mining ship called the UES Rockbreaker, opened its cargo holds and released thousands of simple metal spheres into space. The Shatterswarm ships, expecting sophisticated weapons, attempted to analyze the incoming objects. But there was nothing to analyze. They were solid balls of tungsten, accelerated to relativistic speeds by electromagnetic launchers. The impact was devastating. The Shatterswarm's adaptive defenses, designed to counter energy weapons and smart projectiles, proved useless against simple kinetic impacts. Dozens of crystal ships shattered into clouds of glittering debris. Sometimes, Captain Sarah Wu of the Rockbreaker transmitted, "The old ways work best." But it wasn't just crude force that humanity brought to the fight. Dr. Chen and her team had been studying the Shatterswarm's behavior patterns and made a crucial observation. The crystalline entities were almost too perfect in their responses. "They're like a chess computer," Chen explained to a joint human-Novari tactical meeting. "They can calculate millions of moves ahead, but they assume their opponent is playing the same game. What if we stopped playing chess and started playing Calvin ball?" The Novari's confusion at the reference was evident, but they soon understood as humans began implementing what they called Operation Chaos. Earth ships would start complex attack patterns, then suddenly break formation for no apparent reason. They launched missiles that turned out to be decoys, while smuggling actual warheads inside what appeared to be debris. They broadcasted contradictory orders on open channels, making it impossible for the Shatterswarm to predict their next move. The Novari, initially resistant to such seemingly random tactics, began to see the wisdom in humanity's apparent madness. They watched as the Shatterswarm's responses became increasingly erratic, its perfect logical processes confused by behavior that defied prediction. The turning point came when Dr. Chen proposed combining human unpredictability with Novari precision. Together, they developed what they called quantum randomization, using the Novari's advanced quantum computers not to calculate perfect solutions, but to generate truly random tactical decisions that even they couldn't predict. The Shatterswarm's greatest strength is its ability to analyze and adapt, Chen explained to Premier Ixal. But you can't adapt to pure chaos. That's humanity's gift to the universe. We've spent our entire history embracing the unexpected. The Novari began to integrate human approaches into their own strategies. Their organic ships, once programmed to follow optimal attack patterns, now incorporated random variables. Their neural networks, instead of seeking perfect solutions, learned to embrace imperfection as a tactical advantage. Premier Ixal, watching a successful joint operation that combined a human metal storm attack with Novari precision strikes, turned to Ambassador Okanjo. Her neural filaments pulsed with what humans would recognize as amusement. "We spent millennia advancing our technology," she admitted, only to learn that sometimes the best solution is to throw rocks really, really hard. Okanjo laughed. "That's humanity in a nutshell, Premier. We never forgot our roots. We still remember how to fight dirty when we need to." As the combined fleet celebrated their latest victory, Dr. Chen was already working on their next innovation, a plan so audacious that even the humans thought it might be too crazy to work. But as she would tell anyone who would listen, too crazy to work is humanity's specialty. The Shatter Swarm was about to learn that the most dangerous force in the universe wasn't superior technology or perfect logic. It was a species that had never lost its ability to think outside the box, even if that meant occasionally throwing the box at their enemies. Turning the tide. Dr. Chen's crazy plan was about to change the course of the war. Standing before the combined human-Novari strategic command, she gestured to the holographic display showing the Shatter Swarm's crystalline architecture. "We've been thinking about this all wrong," she announced. "We shouldn't be trying to destroy the Shatter Swarm. We should be trying to confuse it. Its entire existence is based on perfect crystalline structures and logical progression. So let's introduce a little chaos into its system." The plan was dubbed Operation Butterfly, a reference to the old Earth theory about how small changes could cascade into massive effects. It began with a seemingly simple question: what happens to a perfect crystal when you introduce an impurity? The humans had brought with them something the Novari had never considered a weapon: bacterial cultures from Earth's deep-sea thermal vents. Organisms that could survive extreme conditions and, more importantly, could metabolize silicon and other minerals. "Living things are messy," Chen explained. "They're unpredictable. They mutate. They adapt. And most importantly, they create disorder at a molecular level. The Novari's organic technology proved perfect for cultivating and modifying these bacteria. They engineered them to specifically target the unique crystalline structures of the Shatter Swarm, creating microscopic imperfections that would spread through their perfect lattices like cracks in glass." But that was only phase one. The real genius of Operation Butterfly came from an unlikely source: Professor James Murphy, a human theoretical physicist with a reputation for unconventional ideas. "The Shatter Swarm operates like a quantum computer," Murphy explained, his excitement making him pace as he talked. "Its crystalline structure maintains quantum coherence across its entire network. That's how it thinks and adapts so quickly. But quantum states are fragile things. What if we could introduce enough random elements to force wave function collapse across its entire network?" The combined fleet put the plan into action at the Battle of the Seventh Ring. As the Shatter Swarm advanced, human ships launched what appeared to be a standard kinetic bombardment. But hidden among the tungsten slugs were capsules containing the engineered bacteria. Novari ships followed up with precise quantum field manipulators, creating tiny fluctuations in the local quantum field. At first, nothing seemed to happen. The Shatter Swarm continued its advance, adapting to the attacks as it always had. But then something unprecedented occurred. Crystal ships began to show signs of degradation. Perfect formations became erratic. The hive mind's responses, once instantaneous, began to slow. "It's working," Chen exclaimed, watching the sensor data. "The bacterial colonies are creating enough random impurities to disrupt their quantum coherence. They can't maintain their network." The Shatter Swarm, for the first time in its existence, showed signs of confusion. Its perfect crystalline structure, the source of its strength, was being undermined by microscopic chaos. Ships began to act independently, losing their hive mind coordination. Some simply stopped, their decision-making processes disrupted by quantum decoherence. Premier Ixel's neural filaments pulsed with fierce joy as she watched the enemy falter. "They're vulnerable," she announced. "All ships, commence attack pattern Chaos 3. The combined fleet surged forward. Human kinetic weapons shattered crystalline hulls weakened by bacterial degradation. Novari quantum beams, once easily adapted to, now found targets unable to coordinate their defenses. The Seventh Ring, which had been under Shatter Swarm control for 3 years, was liberated in 6 hours. But the true victory wasn't in the battle itself, it was in what they learned. The Shatter Swarm, they discovered, wasn't invincible. Its greatest strength, its perfect, logical, quantum-entangled nature could become its greatest weakness when faced with enough randomness and organic chaos. As the fleet regrouped and prepared for their next offensive, Dr. Chen found herself in the Novary's biological laboratory, watching their engineers integrate human bacteria into their own organic technology. The sight of it, Earth's simplest life forms combining with the most advanced biotechnology in known space, made her smile. "You know what the real irony is," she said to Ambassador Okonjo, who had joined her for the inspection. "The Shatter Swarm probably thought it was the next step in evolution. Perfect, crystalline, logical. But life isn't about perfection. It's about adaptation, about embracing chaos, and making it work for you. That's something humanity never forgot." Okonjo nodded, watching a Novari engineer excitedly explain to his human counterpart how they could use bacterial metabolic processes to power their neural networks. "We're teaching them how to be messy," he observed. "And they're teaching us how to be precise," Chen replied. "Together, we're becoming something new, something neither of us could have been alone." The war was far from over, but for the first time, they had more than just hope. They had a path to victory. The Shatter Swarm was about to learn that the most powerful force in the universe wasn't perfect logic or advanced technology. It was the ability to embrace chaos, to adapt, to find strength in imperfection. It was about to learn why humanity had survived everything the universe had thrown at them. Because sometimes, the best way to solve a problem isn't to overcome it with superior force or technology. Sometimes, the best solution is to change the rules of the game entirely. The final gambit. The combined human Novari fleet gathered at the edge of the Arcturian Nebula, preparing for what they hoped would be their final confrontation with the Shatter Swarm. The enemy had been driven back, but intelligence suggested they were consolidating their forces around what humans had dubbed the Genesis Core, the original crystalline entity from which all others had spawned. Captain Sarah Wu stood on the bridge of the UES Rockbreaker, now modified with Novari biotechnology. The ship's formerly utilitarian corridors pulsed with organic neural pathways, while its human-designed kinetic weapons had been enhanced with quantum targeting systems. Like their vessels, the two species had grown stronger together. "The Genesis Core is adapting," Dr. Chen reported during the final strategic briefing. "It's trying to evolve countermeasures to our bacterial weapons. More importantly, it's learning to operate in a fragmented state, sacrificing some of its processing power to maintain stability." Premier Ixel's neural filaments flickered with concern. "If we don't strike soon, we may lose our advantage. But a direct assault on their stronghold would be suicide." That's when Professor Murphy, who had been unusually quiet, spoke up. "What if we didn't need to destroy the core? What if we could make it destroy itself?" His plan was audacious, even by human standards. The Shatter Swarm's strength came from its ability to process quantum information across its crystalline network. But quantum states were notoriously sensitive to observation. The very act of measuring them caused them to collapse into classical states. "We've been using quantum disruption as a weapon," Murphy explained. "But what if we turned the entire Genesis Core into one massive quantum measurement device?" The plan they developed was dubbed Operation Observer Effect. While the main fleet engaged the Shatter Swarm's defensive forces, a small team would penetrate to the core itself. There, they would use modified Novari quantum field generators to force the core into a state of constant quantum observation, essentially making it collapse its own wave function. The mission would require both human unpredictability and Novari precision. The strike team was a carefully selected mix of both species, human commandos whose chaotic tactics could confuse Shatter Swarm defenses, and Novari quantum specialists who could manipulate the field generators with the required accuracy. The battle began at 600 Earth Standard Time. The main fleet, led by Captain Wu, launched what appeared to be a full frontal assault on the Shatter Swarm's positions. But unlike their usual chaos strategy, this attack followed perfect, predictable patterns. "They're adapting exactly as we expected," Wu reported, watching the Shatter Swarm shift its forces to counter their apparent strategy. They think they've figured us out. Meanwhile, the strike team, aboard a hybrid vessel named the Quantum Butterfly, slipped through the chaos of battle. Dr. Chen, who had insisted on joining the mission, worked with her Novari counterparts to maintain their quantum camouflage, a field that made them appear to be simply another piece of crystalline debris. The Genesis core itself was a sight that defied description, a massive crystalline structure that seemed to exist in multiple quantum states simultaneously. As they approached, their sensors detected something unexpected, patterns in its quantum fluctuations that seemed almost like, "It's afraid," one of the Novari specialists announced, their neural filaments pulsing with surprise. The core, it recognizes that we represent chaos, entropy, the end of its perfect order. It's experiencing something analogous to fear. Chen checked the final calculations one last time. "Ready to initiate quantum field activation on your mark," she reported. "Remember, we'll only have a few seconds before it adapts." The human commandos moved with practiced precision, placing the field generators at calculated intervals around the core. The Novari specialists began their quantum manipulations, their neural interfaces glowing with effort. That's when everything went wrong. The core, sensing the threat, launched a desperate counterattack. Crystalline tendrils erupted from its surface, threatening to overwhelm their position. The quantum field fluctuated wildly, threatening to collapse their carefully laid plans. In that moment of crisis, humanity's greatest strength, the ability to adapt and improvise, proved decisive. Chen, watching the quantum readings spiral out of control, made a split-second decision that no computer would have calculated as optimal. "Reverse polarity on all field generators," she ordered. "We're not going to suppress the quantum field. We're going to overload it." The Novari specialists, having learned to trust human intuition, complied without hesitation. The generators, designed to dampen quantum effects, instead began amplifying them. The core's own desperate attempts to maintain quantum coherence became the weapon of its undoing. The crystalline structure began to vibrate, its perfect lattices trying to exist in too many quantum states simultaneously. Cracks appeared, not in physical space, but in the quantum fabric itself. "Clear the area," Chen shouted. "It's going to." The rest of her warning was lost as the Genesis core collapsed, not with an explosion, but with an implosion that rippled through quantum space itself. Throughout the battlefield, Shatterswarm vessels suddenly went dark, their controlling intelligence severed from existence. As the quantum dust settled, the combined fleet held their breath, waiting to see if any trace of the Shatterswarm remained. When no response came, Captain Mu broke the silence with a message that would be remembered for generations. Sometimes the best way to fight perfect order is with perfect chaos. Legacy of Two Worlds. 20 years after the fall of the Shatterswarm, the Novari homeworld was unrecognizable. Where crystal armies had once devoured everything in their path, hybrid cities now flourished. Their spires a blend of human practical engineering and Novari organic architecture. In orbital shipyards, vessels under construction combined the reliability of human mechanical systems with the sophistication of Novari biotechnology. Dr. Sarah Chen, now director of the Joint Species Development Initiative, stood in her office at the New Hope Research Center, watching a group of human and Novari students in the corridor below. The young Novari's neural filaments pulsed with excitement as their human classmates demonstrated an old Earth game called basketball. The sight never failed to make her smile. "Quite a change from when we first met," Ambassador Okonjo said, joining her at the window. His hair had gone gray, but his eyes still held the same determination they had during the war. "Remember how skeptical they were about working with us primitives?" Chen laughed. "Now look at us. We're teaching them sports, they're teaching us neural interface technology, and somehow it all works." The victory over the Shatterswarm had done more than save both species. It had fundamentally changed them. The Novari, once focused solely on advancing their technology in logical, predictable ways, had learned to value improvisation and creative thinking. Humans, while maintaining their adaptability, had gained access to technological and biological advances that would have taken them centuries to develop on their own. But perhaps the most profound change was philosophical. The Novari had believed that progress meant moving away from their origins, always seeking greater complexity and sophistication. Humans had shown them that true advancement meant building upon their foundations, not abandoning them. In turn, humanity had learned the value of precision and patience from the Novari. The combination had led to breakthroughs neither species could have achieved alone. Their hybrid ships now explored distant galaxies. Their combined medical knowledge had conquered diseases that had plagued both species. Their shared defense forces ensured that no threat like the Shatter Swarm would ever again endanger either civilization. Premier Ixal, her neural pathways now showing the iridescent patterns of age, often told young Novari about the day humans had first arrived in their space. "We thought we were dying," she would say, her filaments pulsing with the memory. "Instead, we were about to be reborn." In the quantum physics lab, Professor Murphy worked alongside Novari scientists, exploring the fundamental nature of reality itself. Their different perspectives led to theories that revolutionized both species' understanding of the universe. The Shatter Swarm sought perfection through uniformity. He would tell his students, "We found something better, perfection through diversity." The bacterial cultures that had helped turn the tide of war had evolved into a new field of study, bacterial computing, which combined organic growth patterns with quantum mechanics in ways neither species had imagined possible. The first bacterial quantum computer, ironically, ran on crystalline substrates derived from studying Shatter Swarm debris. But perhaps the most telling change could be seen in the new generation. Human children grew up understanding neural interfaces as naturally as their parents had understood smartphones. Young Novari learned to play, to experiment, to embrace the chaos that their ancestors had feared. Together, they were creating a culture that was neither human nor Novari, but something entirely new. One evening, as the binary sunset painted the hybrid city in shades of gold and purple, Shen found herself in the memorial garden. The crystalline monument at its center contained a single sentence in both human and Novari script. "Progress is not about becoming something else. It's about becoming more of who you are." A young Novari student approached her, neural filaments glowing with curiosity. "Director Chen," they asked, "is it true the humans saved us because they were less advanced?" Chen considered the question carefully. "No," she replied. "We helped save you because we never forgot that advancement isn't just about technology. It's about maintaining your core identity while embracing change." The Shatter Swarm thought perfect order was the ultimate goal. We knew better. The universe thrives on balance. Order and chaos, simplicity and complexity, tradition and innovation. She gestured to the city around them, where human children played in parks grown from Novari biotechnology, where ancient earth music played from speakers made of living tissue, where the future was being built on the foundations of both worlds. "Look around you," she said. "We didn't save you. We saved each other. And in doing so, we became something greater than either of us could have been alone." As night fell over the city, lights came on, some electric, some bioluminescent, all working in harmony. In orbit, hybrid ships prepared to jump to quantum space, carrying the combined knowledge and culture of both species to the stars. They were no longer just humans or Novari. They were pioneers of a new way of existing, proof that the greatest strength in the universe wasn't perfect order or pure chaos, but the wisdom to know when to use each. The end of the Shatter Swarm hadn't been just a victory in war. It had been the beginning of a journey that would reshape both species and ripple across the galaxy. It was a reminder that sometimes the most primitive solution could solve the most advanced problem, and that true wisdom lay not in abandoning the old ways for the new, but in finding ways to make them work together. In the end, humanity's greatest gift to the universe hadn't been their technology or their tactics. It had been their reminder that progress doesn't mean forgetting where you came from. It means building upon it, growing stronger not by becoming something else, but by becoming more of who you always were.